Um, we're going to go ahead and continue the hearing that we started on February 3rd on HB 2152. It's probably the longest hearing we've had in many years in the legislature, apparently. Uh, three full weeks. So what we're going to do is we're going to give the proponents 5 minutes to update us on the negotiations and their point of view on them. We'll turn it over to the opponents after that 5 minutes so they can give their update on the negotiations and where we're at. We also do have the OSBC and the treasurer online. They will stand for questions as well if we have any questions for them. And then we will just open up questions for both the proponents and opponents. So with that, Alex, who's going for your guys' side? You? Oh, okay. We'll call up Alex Orrell with the Kansas Bankers Association. Alex, welcome to the committee again. And what's the update?
Well, good morning, Mr. Chairman. Sorry, someone that was talking before me is really tall. But Alex Orrell, Senior Vice President, Government Relations with the Kansas Bankers Association. Always an honor to be before you today, and especially on a day like today. Over the last couple of weeks, there's been a significant amount of work that you all have asked us to do on your behalf to try and work together, as we always do in this building. I'm proud to report that I believe we are there. And over the last 2 weeks, a special thank you to my colleague, Kelly Van Zwal, our VP Government Relations. I have a couple of major balloons here that are a couple pages that were not for today, but many different iterations that have been worked on and discussed. And, you know, this process has gone on for more than a year plus. You know, with an informational hearing last year, interim committee hearings, negotiations, and the reason why I bring up that long process is because the process works. We hear many times out there the negative things about this building and in Washington, D.C., but happy to say the process works, and this is how sometimes the sausage is made. We've worked very closely over the last multiple weeks with Amanda Stanley in particular, with the city of Topeka, to try and make some concessions on our end that alleviate their concerns. Some concessions on their end to help shore up some of our things that we'd like to see in the legislation. You know, as of this morning, I think we're there. So we're very hopeful they'll have a balloon amendment. I do want to say thank you, David. You've been working a lot, but for you all to consider. I mean, we can say we have a deal all we want, but it's up to you. You are the legislature. You have the votes, not us. So I am going to turn it over to Kelly now, but the changes that we're going to make here significantly reduce the fiscal impact of local municipalities, but increase a significant economic driver in our state where we're still going to be able to drive significant taxpayer dollars back into Kansas and keep them in Kansas. And that's something you should all be proud to vote for when you have the opportunity. I would ask for your support when we do. And I'm going to turn it to Kelly.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of committee. Kelly Van Zwal with Kansas Bankers Association. Like Alex said, there's been a lot of work into this, and some of it was finalized just this morning. So we actually don't have the language prepared for you to look at, but I can kind of talk to you in big picture about some of the things we've agreed to. One is we agreed to remove the language on changing bond proceeds. We agree that the whole time we were kind of asking for clarification on that. We agree that issue wasn't ready, and there's a lot of technicalities that go into bonds. So we removed that section. We agreed to remove the change on the bank statutory investment rate. That is the section that I believe caused them the biggest heartburn, and that was the part that had the fiscal impact. So while that was important to us, in the spirit of negotiation, we pulled that section. And then because we agreed on those things, we also added in language requiring the governmental units to give the bank 2 business days to respond to the bid. Right now, there's nothing in statute saying how long they have to respond to the bid, and we've had issues of not having more than 4 hours, working hours to respond to the bid, so we agreed to 2 days. We initially asked for 3, came down to 2. We added in a reporting mechanism to the treasurer's office. Right now, there's nothing in statute. If the law is violated, there's nowhere for the financial institution to say, hey, we think there was an issue here. So now that report will go to the treasurer's office. They will investigate. If they find a violation, that would go to the AG's office. For the first violation, the governmental unit would do an educational course on public funds laws. For any violation after that, there's a civil penalty. We also agreed to add in language on the collateral pool, a lot of language on the collateral pool, to kind of address some of their concerns and just to clarify the intent of the pool. So we put in language on the administrator, making sure that they don't have a conflict, that if you're administrating the pool, you're not also bidding on public funds. We put in language clarifying how the FDIC and the liquidation process for them would come into effect. We just agreed this morning to put in more language clarifying that the administrator has the ability to liquidate the securities. That's all in an event of a default or a failure, which we never like to talk about because we would like to avoid that at all costs. We put in specific language allowing the treasurer to do rules and regs and the administrator to really focus in on making sure that the collateral in the pool is at the statutory required 102%. So to make sure it's always at the full collateral amount at all times. We agreed to language so that if the administrator does find at any point that the bank is not fully collateralized, he'll send the bank a notice. They have 5 days to fix that issue. If they don't fix it within 5 days, there would then be a fine or penalty on the bank. Right now, there's nothing in statute like that, so that is a new addition. And I think those are kind of the biggest parts. Some of the other parts are just kind of really clarifying reporting. So the bank would report to the administrator would share that report with the governmental unit. At any time, the government unit can ask the bank for a report. So there's lots of communication going on about the collateral pieces. I think those are kind of the biggest pieces. I'd happy to stand for questions. I know it'll make more sense when you actually have language to look at. And if Amanda, you think I missed any part, feel free to jump in on that.
Thank you, Kelly. And we'll do questions after we go through everybody else. So we'll turn it over to the opponent side now. Amanda, will that be you? Welcome to committee.
Well, thank you so much. Like Kelly and Alex said, it has been a long last 5 days. I think we all are going to go start side businesses, being consultants on how to start municipal pools. But I think we all have a really good grasp, talking with the treasurer now on differences between single bank pools and multi-bank pools. The key pieces for us were the rate, which we have gotten out. The other key pieces, I represent Topeka, but cities across the state are all sizes. A lot of times these issues are education pieces, which is why the focus first on education. If you don't know the bankroll and you're a city clerk in a city of 500 people, maybe step one should be let's educate on it rather than jumping to civil penalties. Everybody was on board with that. That's very common in state law in lots of different areas. So we've got that taken care of. And then the other big piece was making sure that the treasurer has explicit rule and reg authority on certain things like maintaining the sufficiency of the collateral. That's a big piece, is making sure that somebody's watching if we're no longer watching this at our level. So we appreciate going back and forth, pulling language from other states on making that happen. So we are happy to stand for questions. Like Kelly said, in any good compromise, neither side's 100% happy. That probably gets to the middle part. Can everybody point to some piece they wanted? Sure. But at the end of the day, the goal is to try to get to a yes. And I think we are there. So happy to stand for any questions.
Thank you, Amanda. And I bet you never thought that years down the road, we would be talking about banking policy and debating judiciary stuff.
A good lawyer can learn how to be an expert in anything. So that is my new goal.
Thank you. Thank you. I know you came in late to this process, but you were a very big help. So thank you for joining on and working to get to a compromise. I do appreciate
Happy
it.
to do it.
Awesome. So, Mr. Treasurer, are you with us?
I am.
Okay. Do you want to add any comments? I know your position, the treasurer's office, has been mentioned quite a few times here. Do you have any comments you want to add? Do you feel that, at least in first blush, I know you've been informed of a lot of these updates in the amendment. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Both sides have been good at communicating with me, asking their questions. I think we're right where we need to be. I thank both parties for doing their work. The only small thing that I would add is we'll still have more to learn. As we go forward, we'll figure out those other details, but we're in the right spot to be able to do that. And we may have some things we work on next year that we want to make better for all parties. I still have more to learn, but both sides have really clarified that, as Ms. Stanley mentioned, and the bankers clarified to me earlier in the last week. It's a single pool rather than a multiple pool, and that is a a new approach, but it's actually simpler. It's much simpler to be able to implement. So seeing our road from here to completion is a lot clearer than it was when we had the chance to talk last.
I appreciate that. I appreciate all your help in this too, Mr. Treasurer. Do you think after we present the amendment in full that you could get us an updated fiscal note? Because I assume it's going to come down drastically.
So yes, even the updated fiscal note that we prepared, we need to rework in light of the single bank pool as opposed to the multiple pool. Also, the language that we have, it can be more clear, and I'll check with PMIB about something that brings that side of the fiscal note down significantly to work forward. And what we want to do there is spend more time with the study on the state side and make sure that we're right at that point where we're adding value to all parties. So I think that will really bring the fiscal note down. That is not a concern for me at this point. And yeah, we'll get you more detail.
Appreciate that, Mr. Treasurer. We also have, I believe, Commissioner Hurden with the OSBC on. Commissioner, do you have anything you'd like to add? I catch you again, Mr. Commissioner. Yeah, you're breaking up. I know you have some representation in the committee room, though. We could see if is anybody here from OSBC. I see Brock back there. Is Mr. Kemp? If you have no comments, it's fine too. I just want to give you guys, you're good? Okay. All righty. So committee, we're going to open this up for questions. We have a little over an hour. I don't know if we're going to take up that whole time. Please just ask, direct who your questions are to. It could be opponents, proponents, the treasurer's office, OSBC. Just kind of point who you want to ask the questions to, and let's fire away. Representative McDonald.
I just have a little question about 2 days to respond. Is it 2 business days? Are we going to specify that?
Yes, it would be 2 business days.
Committee? No questions at all? Come on. Let's break this agreement up now. Come on. Let's get them fighting. Well, my intention, Gary, did you have something? Representative White.
The reason why I didn't want to ask, because it's one of those questions. I don't know who even to direct this to, but I don't understand why the treasurer's office is even involved. Why isn't this an OSBC? They're overseeing collateralized loans. So it's a pretty simple question, I would think.
Oh, and it's a great question. It's actually been asked that multiple times. Some other states, it has been the Division of Banking, like Colorado. Nebraska has been a third-party vendor, the Nebraska Bankers Insurance Service Corporation. For Kansas, because we have the Pooled Money Investment Board and the Municipal Investment Pool, which has roughly $1 billion of local municipal money already, and they're overseeing the safety, safety of those funds. And then obviously with Treasurer Johnson's just financial acumen and business experience, we thought it was just the perfect fit for our state. Other states have been different, but because the PMIB and the MIP, it just made sense that where it was going to land.
Mr. Treasurer, did you want to add anything to that?
Well, I appreciate Mr. Oral's kind words, but you're right that this could go a number of different places. As we talked about the options, as was mentioned, since we already handle tracking the collateral for the dollars in the MIP for the state dollars, that collateralization was a function that we had. There would be some overlapping of that as monies move back and forth, and it is a place that it could reside as well as others that we can. To that end, it also allows us, if we indeed find that it's not a great fit with our office, we can delegate that to another entity, and we will look into that to see if there's a better home. But right now, we think it will be within the treasurer's office.
Good.
Yes, thank you, Alex, and thank you, Treasurer Johnson.
And I would be remiss to not say thank you to the chairman and ranking member Shu for their efforts helping with this as well, instrumental.
Committee, any further questions? Oh, Representative McDonald.
Since they've dropped the bank rate, are there any additional requirements for the governments that we're putting on them?
How to have it. There are various requirements, working through those. We think they're doable. If you, or someone that has the special investment powers, forgetting the name of that, expanded investment powers, we're not one of them, so I always forget the term. They have some additional reporting requirements. It's all reporting they already do. It's just changing the place, so it's not a big deal, and no one thought to do that. There's some obligations to make sure that you're complying with state law and training options. If you do, you do have to allow the bank to use the pooled collateral method, so that's a requirement, but everything in there is stuff that seems very workable.
Representative King.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. What are the advantages of going to a single pool?
I'm going to do my best to answer that, Representative King, but I also do know we have Mark Schifferdecker that is on the line, our KBA past chairman. He's a chairman, president, CEO, GN Bank, and gentleman that's been before you that operates in Colorado. The single bank pool method, for instance, it's just one bank is aggregating their collateral only. There's no mixing and mingling of other financial institutions' collateral. So no bank that has to worry about the other bank's collateral. It's completely in-house. So we think it's more secure, more transparent, and it just would work better for many reasons. But if Mark has any additional comments.
Yeah, Mark, if you're with us, if you want to
Yeah.
add anything. Welcome.
Yeah, sorry about that. I froze up for a minute. Can you hear me okay? Yes, and Mr. Chairman and committee members, I apologize in my previous testimony that I didn't make that more clear because I testified a couple times about the collateral pool. And the intent from the beginning was always a single bank collateral pool. And I just assumed that everybody understood that. And I apologize I didn't make that more clear. But that's the way it works in Colorado. That's the way it works in Nebraska. And I believe Alabama as well. And so my apologies for that misunderstanding, but that was always the original intent, that it would be a single bank. No collateral would be commingled. No deposits would be commingled. It's per bank. Just the bank would aggregate within itself. So sorry, it wasn't more clear.
Not a problem, Mark. Representative, does that answer your question? Committee, any further questions? All righty, seeing none, we will now officially close the hearing on HB 2152. We'll tally up how long this hearing took in hours. But that's all we have for today. I actually do have a little bit of business. We need to approve committee meeting minutes. They were issued via email February 13th. They are meeting minutes for the 22nd, 27th, and 29th of January. Do we have any corrections or discussion? Seeing none, I will entertain a motion. Vice Chair Steen.
Move to approve.
Seconded by Representative Roser. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. Committee, it is my intent to work this bill, HB 2152, that we just closed the hearing on Monday. As you've been told, there's an agreement and a balloon amendment that we will have. As soon as that language is approved by both sides and we get it, we will try to upload it to the S drive and get that out to everybody so they can have at least a weekend to review the language. And it's my intention that in Monday's hearing that we will work this bill with the amendment. So that's the hope as of now. You know, things can change, but that's kind of what we're looking at now. We do also have 2 Senate bills that are coming our way. I believe I intend on hearing them Wednesday of next week. They both passed the Senate 40-0, non-controversial. So we will work those or hear those. We will work those the following week. And from there on out, we really don't have much to do. We may have some informational hearings And next Wednesday, we'll also hear from our insurance commissioner, Commissioner Schmidt. She'll come in and just kind of give a presentation of what's going on in the insurance department. So look forward to that as well. But without anything else for the good of the committee, I'm sorry, Representative Roser.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Can we, and maybe the treasurer would better answer this, can we anticipate that fiscal note then as well by Monday?
Mr. Treasurer, are you still with us?
I am, and you can.
Perfect. Love to hear that. Great question. So, yep, that's kind of the goal for now. Again, stay flexible, things change, but I think we're on the right path. And I do want to thank everybody inside this room and outside of this room for actually getting into the room, discussing, and getting an agreement hammered out. I think we do have a good agreement. Thank my ranking member too for his help in this. Kind of just kept him updated throughout. But it takes all of us to come together and get an agreement worked out. And I'm glad that we found some consensus. That's what I drive for in this committee. I try to pass everything bipartisan. I try to make sure that the least opponents as possible. Let's fix the issues. Let's fix the concerns before we work it. And I think that's where we're at now. So with that committee, we are adjourned and we'll see you next week.